Hey everybody, I am KPB Co-op, and today I have Panda Global's own Suar with me today. Thanks so much for taking the time to be on with me.
Yeah, my pleasure. How you been?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Great. In the middle of a release, but we're still kicking.
So since we're currently in the release period for PGR version 4, I wanted to talk about the work that goes into the final product. Is the data you guys take for like scores and how well people place and everything, is that hand recorded or do you use a program to collect that data?
Oh, that's all, that's all automated. I think we went through probably 10,000 pieces of information that was extraneous down to the last 1,000 bits. Things like set counts and stuff, because as you've probably been seeing in the releases, everybody that is featured has their wins recorded against everybody at the tournaments they went to, as well as their losses.
Mm.
So there's a great bit of that that's not included, like pools, uh, anything that was just way out there. If it was like a 2,000, 1,000 person tournament that just didn't make the cut, we tended to feature top 32, but everything out of that has been automated and imported, exported by our database, which was made by Giant. He's one of the most recent Panda Global stats members, joining at the end of last year. No, not last year. Oh my gosh, 2018. He joined quite a while now. And PracticalTAS, who makes the algorithm for our rankings, has also been with us for 2 seasons now. But everything is automated. We have not hand recorded since the first season, which was probably our roughest, like almost 2 years ago.
Yeah, I'd assume that'd be so much to go through, but I wanted
It
to ask to be
is.
sure. What would you say is the hardest part when it comes to producing a new version of the PGR video production, dealing with the stats collection and compiling it all, telling people you can't reveal the list to them even though they really want to know, etc.?
um, Hilariously enough, the rankings are the easiest part. They've been done since how long has it been? They've been done since December, early December. Yeah, they were done like 2 or 3 nights after the two GGC finals.
Wow.
Since that's just because we've been collecting data all season.
Mm-hmm.
We also had to have data updated for my little segment at the two GGC finals, so we had everything up there. We're just adding what happened there, as well as bringing in everybody else. So the rankings aren't difficult because it's just like, an Excel sheet that multiple that calculates everything
Mm-hmm.
through the algorithm. But everything coming into video productions always been our biggest hurdle. Basically, we have to take what we've done and condense it into a format that editors can understand, whether or not they're graphics or video production. This time we just have video production. Um, but we have to like take their like, I mean, if you've seen just in the player cards themselves, you have their name, their region, their tag, like their real names featured.
Mm-hmm.
You have their main, their secondary, their tertiary. You have their win rate against the current top 50, as well as the win percent. You have their overall score. You have their rankings from the first, second, third PGR. And so immediately it gets very, very not cluttered, because we've kept the information very nice in terms of display, but it gets to be a lot.
Mm-hmm.
From every 10 people, there's about 1,000 pieces of information within the whole video. That's very easy to like. It just adds up, because you think about all their placements.
Mm-hmm.
So immediately you have that. Then you have who they beat and who they lost to. So that's information. Then the character, nationality, and name of the person they beat or lost to for every single one. So immediately it adds up. And we looked at it, and within every sheet, there's at least 10, like 1,000 pieces of information. Their Twitter, their social media, like all that's displayed. Um, and transferring that to somebody to look at to make a video, it's always a game of telephone, and that's how all of our famous typos have been. Pretty much, that's how they begun. I mean, I think most notably in season 2, we had Sonic Death. We had the end result of the whatever it was. I think he was 31 through 40.
Mm-hmm.
It just shows everybody, and then for whatever reason, nobody caught it. Dath, who is a very famous South Florida Robin main, had Sonic as their character. Nobody caught it because we never thought that that was going to be a mistake.
Yeah.
Plus, we have to view the video so many times to make sure it looks good and also mistakes. But as I'm sure, as another content creator such as yourself, you've seen something 1,000 times and then you publish it and then someone's like, yeah, you misspelled the word the.
It's 5 seconds
Like,
in, and their opinion of the entire video is ruined because of that one mistake.
yeah, I mean, it happened. It's happened already. I mean, what did we have? We had, I don't know. I mean, it's been very minute. I think this season we haven't had anything crazy. Oh, like I think it showed Mistake and Ragna, these two, famous Canadian players. It showed their flag as American, which was a mistake.
Mm,
Um, Mr. E's age wasn't shown on the last release, but that was basically because we couldn't confirm it in time.
yeah.
There's also like a lot of ever-changing information. Like somebody went up and got a sponsorship. I believe it was AC, and he hadn't told us. He got a sponsorship like the day before the rankings came out, and he was 50th. So of course you're just like, you have to rerun everything just for that one person.
Yeah.
So the hardest thing every season, bar none, has been the production of the videos. Um, we'll get into it later as to like how that's changed because there's no articles or this or that. But video production, people take extremely for granted. I'll just say flatly.
Yeah.
I have as well. Um, obviously there's like templates and a lot of automation that you can use and macros, but having something be engaging and like interesting and also just um, as flashy as it looks while also being clear and conveying the right message all has this like formula to it that escapes a lot of people even in the professional world.
Yeah.
So that's been the hardest part, and obviously that's where all the memes come from. And it really bites, but I've learned to like really embrace it when there is a typo and people just run with it because it adds to the video itself.
Yeah.
It adds to the impression. It's really funny. People also meme certain things on it that aren't even incorrect. Like maybe the picture's funny and then like the picture's taken and put somewhere. I mean, there's been all sorts of things. It's really funny.
So that leads into my next question. You touched on it a little bit, but what are the different approaches you guys have had to use when creating the list, and the final video product, to make it successful and widely seen? Because we see nowadays that, videos and specifically written articles, especially in FGC and Smash, have a hard time being successful.
Yeah, I guess it determines what you define as success. You know, being frank, like the releases themselves, everything is more so done as a proof of concept repeatedly for sponsors and other groups to like sort of understand how this can happen,
Mm.
not only in Smash but also for their games. We did do like a really mini PGR for Mortal Kombat X. That was a top 15 a couple summers ago. You might or might have not heard about it because it was that small. Um, the thing about Smash, however, is that unlike the FGC, the FGC, especially with the SRK forums going down, I don't know if you heard about that, but they went down yesterday or the
Oh
day
wow.
before. Basically, they're Smash boards, but forums as a whole we know are on a decline. That's another story.
Mm.
But FGC is very fragmented. They are not all on Reddit. They're not on, Test Your Might, which is another sort of SRK forum. They're not on SRK all the time. They're not on, anything else you might find Smashers on. Like sometimes, like Facebook is okay, but that's a little hard to get to because not everybody has. I mean, Facebook's kind of weird and nebulous. There are Facebook groups and stuff, but Smash hangs around on Twitter a lot and Reddit a lot. And so you got two groups that you can instantly gain feedback or exposure or impressions from that FGC does not have. And I think one of the reasons that we have, some of the most widely seen and widely shared content um, specifically did start with the platform. I think, Panda Global taking the risk on endorsing the rankings and giving us a platform. Obviously, some might say, oh, conflict of interest, blah, blah, blah. But like everybody in esports does everything.
Yeah.
Because, there's not a lot of, there's not a lot of talent around,
Yeah.
to be quite honest. I mean, even on the rules committee that we have and whatnot, I know that like Vaseth was like a big proponent of that, and Salem is also a really good top player, and they're both MVG. So one could argue, oh well, the rules benefit Salem,
Yeah.
Bayonetta, whatever. But for us, we've always like at least like put ourselves, like my biggest thing is like putting ourselves out there for people, because a lot of times stats or not, I want to say higher order powers sort of stuff that
Mm-hmm.
people sort of dismiss as either being manipulative behind the scenes or something. We always put ourselves out there. So here's the data. Here's what we did. Here's what we factored. We also take in feedback all the time. I always tell people, like, if you do dislike it, like, tell me. That's better. That's just as good as people telling me they like it,
Yeah.
because they get to like fix it. If you look at the videos from the beginning to now, they're like it's like not even night and day. It's like just two different things entirely.
Yeah.
um, and then also having the support of like certain community figures. In the beginning, we had ESAM voice it, which did cause a little bit of confusion because people thought it was ESAM's list, and
Yeah.
then they thought it was opinion based because he was giving his bias and everything. But that was also kind of the point for the real. Then second season, we had Alpharad, very famous YouTuber, content creator for Smash and other games. And then last season, we had D1. So, like, we have this endorsement, we have all this going on with community leaders, not only accepting it, but also bouncing it back between each other. And then the other thing, too, is that it's like salient to every conversation in Smash, both in and out of tournament.
Mm-hmm.
When people get signed, everybody always says PGR win, PGR set count, PGR player, PGR tournament. And so we've really just given a lot of vocabulary and changed the language for people to like absentmindedly just talk about it. I mean, people have it as their goal now to like make the PGR. People
Yeah.
have like, tweets about like beating a PGR player, even sometimes at a local.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's really helped a lot too, because whereas some people try to create videos or do coverage, um, it doesn't really stick because it's not inherently important for the scene.
Yeah.
Um, Not that content creation is not important, but it's like we kind of made a language, and so by that function, like people have to say it. So that's one of the reasons it's successful, and that's hard to like replicate for something else. So it really is more of a phenomenon than it is like a recipe, I'd say.
Okay. Cool. So we can move away from like the specific like production and everything. And I want to get some insight on S tiers, which I know have been a hot topic for version 4 throughout the entire season. What caused the shift to go from 4 S tiers in version 3 to having 10 S/S plus tier tournaments this season?
Yeah, so that became a meme too. So the tournament tier system was something that we enacted. We kind of always had it, but it was very loose. And then we were like, okay, let's just like make it so like, because before like Apex 2015, I'm like, that's a major, and like
Mm,
people like switched major with nationals, and nationals and premieres with majors, and then people would say like regionals, and then like super regionals, and then like mega regionals. Now you have all this like different vocabulary. People would say monthlies when they meant nationals, national. So it got really confusing. Eventually, we started calling them tier one, tier two, tier three, tier four. Then we moved away from that and just adopted like the typical tier list language. So we said like S tier, and everybody knows what that is. A
yeah.
tier, everyone knows what that is. It also helped for like like marketing, investors, sponsors. When people said like, "Hey, I have this S tier tournament. Hey, I have this A tier tournament." People understand prestige already. So um, in season 3, that spanned from January until May, until like essentially CEO. So before the start of Summer Smash, our values back then like pretty much went into player and pop bonus kind of split. Top player presence was a big deal, but like we had like these 3 values kind of mixed in.
Mm,
It gave us varying results. Obviously, Japan has the toughest time getting ranked, as you know, PGR sanctioned events. North America has an easier time because of the density of top players. But then for PGR V4, we did away with entrant, like with pop bonuses and stuff, and we separated it. So it was either what's your top player density like, or what's your raw entrant plus pop bonus count. We
mm,
took the highest of the 2 scores,
yeah.
because sometimes you'd have like for whatever reason, you'd have like a 300 person no PGR, but pot bonus tournament, and maybe like Wadi would win that because he was the only one in the region, so we wanted to give that credit.
Yeah.
But then other times you had like you had like your 7 PGR players like come in and like duke it out, and it was like 200 people, but we still those are the tournaments that mattered. And through all our testing, we saw that top player density determines the most accurate results for rank making, not if there's 1,000 people or 2,000 randoms, because in any given tournament, a PGR player will play like 6 to 7 sets at an S tier, and only 3 to 4 will actually matter for their ranking.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the big deal. Like, so it goes on and on. But the biggest reason is that we did have the Summer of Smash. We had sagas fueling this very feverish, not obsessive, but like this very like repeated high attendance from these really talented players. We pretty much figured in the beginning for the TTS for this season, or the like V4 season, we tiered all the PGR players like, okay, 1 through 10 is worth this many, 6 through, or we said 1 through 5 is worth this many, 6 through 10 is worth that many, 11 through 15 is worth that many, and so on and so forth. Because obviously, if 0 is at your event and you won with 0 present at your event, that meant a lot more than if you won, without 0 at your event.
Yeah, if you had AC as your highest PGR ranked player.
Exactly. So, that obviously made a difference. And so we figured, okay, like if you're going to get 0, MKLeo, Larry Lur, all those top 5, top 10 players under one roof, it's got to be for a good reason, because they also do not go, locally. They do not go, to anything small. They only go to the tournaments that matter. So we figured, okay, like if these top 5 players or top 10 players are going to be under one roof, it's going to be a big deal. And lo and behold, there were like there's a saturation of events that involved all of them all the time. And so, it kind of hurt. I mean, they were like, for all intents and purposes, S-tier tournaments, but in other people's minds, S-tier tournaments are those like once every 3 months, 2,000 people, 40,000 Twitch viewers type tournaments. When in reality, a lot of these S-tiers were like, maybe 300, 400 people, maybe even less sometimes, and maybe like 7 to 11,000 viewers on Twitch, and they were back to back. I mean, at one point we had, I think, Super Smash Con into Shine, and that was all preceded by SCR Saga. I don't know. We also had GTX into Big House. So, obviously, like, everybody saying, oh, S tier this, S tier that, but it was also the Summer of Smash. And so that really fueled everybody's availability and thirst to compete. Everybody was always competing because there was no school, there was no work. Well, I mean, there was, but whatever. For a lot of these professional smashers, like, this is their job. So they just like competed all the time. And there were tournaments that were offering. So if it wasn't the Sagas, it was our Classic Legacy event. If it wasn't the Classic Legacy event, it was a new time event, like, the Shine, which is the most recent, like, kind of new major, or it was like the Smash Cons, or it was, the GTX coming up and being like, here's a big spectacle. So, was it bad? I don't think so, because it gave a lot of great data, it gave a lot of great sets. But I think it kind of like watered down the whole S tier for people. And now all we have on our radar is Genesis and Frostbite for the next 3 months or so, which before it would be 2 majors like every 3 weeks at least. Now it's like, kind of different. And that's because we're in a beginning of the school year, beginning of the calendar year.
It's just not as easy to have the events now as it was when you have stuff like Evo and then DreamHack back to back.
Oh, we had the DreamHacks. We had like 4 of them sprinkled out, throughout the year, 2 of them. Yeah, so it was different. I don't think it upset people, more so that it just like miffed people, or just like shock and awe is not shock and awe when it's all the time. So I think that really kind of, and then we invented like S plus tier, because like, people were mouthing off on Twitter that like, oh, this isn't an S tier if it's like, because DreamHack for a lot of people, it is a convention, and Smash is not like, Smash isn't exactly a spectacle at DreamHack. It's like kind of a side event, like with other things going on. I don't know that any of the DreamHacks had it on the main stage, but I'm pretty sure for a lot of people it's just blocked out with some setups, and it's pretty like, it's okay. Like, it's not anything crazy. And so people were like, this isn't an S tier. And so we invented S plus tier for like, things like Civil War and Evo, where it's like, if you win that, you're basically holding that W for a year.
Yeah.
And that helped alleviate a little bit, but then it turns into like you're trying to please people's biases, and it doesn't really, eventually you're just like running in a circle.
Yeah.
Like S plus tier, S tier, like the difference to people outside the scene means nothing, and so it just kind of like you get lost on that. So
Yeah.
that's what happened.
Okay, cool. Next up, I want to talk a little bit about earning like your rankings and how exactly that goes down. And this question is, so you have two players who have a win on Captain Zach, but someone gets their win at the start of season 4 and someone gets it at the end. Obviously, Captain Zach's ranking is probably around 10 spots different than what it was for version 3 compared to version 4. Does that affect how impactful the win is at the end of the season?
Very good question. We actually have well, we have some top players that are sort of upset, or not upset, because they understand. Because basically, what happens is, in Smash, there are people who come out of nowhere, and there are people that, kind of fall pretty hard. Reasons being manifold, whether they have to go back to work, to school, their character just is not working out for the meta right now. Most notably, Renai Villager. Like, he didn't make it this season, and he even came to the States a couple times for Evo and I think one of the sagas, and he didn't do too hot. Villager, of course, just gets spam DLC at the moment, well as just being a character in general that has not a tough time, but like it's not exactly a character that like scares people.
Yeah.
But of course, he was PGR this season before, and he fell off. And then you have people like Mistaken Lima who were not PGR last season, and now they're like, arguably like top 25. Well, not arguably, like Lima made 23rd or 24th, I believe, and the Mistake has not been announced, so he's by process of elimination top 20. And so people have been saying like, you beat Ally at Genesis, and or sorry, what was the first term of the year? Like, I don't know, somebody like you beat Ally at the beginning of last season, right? And so Ally was just crowned top, I forgot, top 6 or top.
He was 5, I believe.
Yeah, so he's top 10, obviously. And then now, like he's fallen off a great deal. People have noted it. He's noted it. Mario's had a tough time. He's also had, like personal, not health problems, but he had like LASIK surgery, so he's recovering. He's not competing, and so his stock is greatly plummeted a bit. Plummeted in the sense of like top players like him, if they're not in the top 5 conversation, top 10, then they're not at their goal at all.
Yeah.
Sort of how like players beat themselves up if they're not, top 20. It's like, whoa, you're still 21st, like Esam said, but he wanted to be top 15. And so for them, like that's failure. To us, it's like, well, you're still like amazing. But digressing, beating Ally in the beginning versus beating Ally now, you would need a consistently updated ranking system like weekly to sort of validate that, because of course if you beat Ally then, that everybody hears you got a top 10 win, it might be featured in an article, this and that. How do you validate that when at the end of the season he's not widely regarded as a top 10 win? Like I said, like the constantly updated ranking system would have to take that into account. However, we take in wins simultaneously at the end, considering how people did in the last 6 months. So all their power levels are relative to the entire season.
Okay.
Because if we did it so that, because the problem starts to turn into, well, if you're going to validate Ally so highly, then you're also going to have to not validate Liam and Mistake highly, who were not ranked at all last season. But if you tell anybody now that a mistake, a win on Mistake or Lima doesn't matter, then they'll just look at you like you have 3 heads. So at the end, like, of course, like if you take the whole season into account and everybody's measured simultaneously, then like you work out all those kinks, and it does sort of create this cognitive dissonance where like, whoa, but like Ally was a top 10 win back then, and now like maybe he's not. But then it's like, well, what you're asking for is kind of like a different ranking system.
Yeah.
Like tennis updates after every
Grand
championship,
Slam.
but then they do after every major, they update all the rankings. And so that's every couple months. So, if there's a situation, and then we also need more data to justify that, because there's just not a lot of data right now to like do like in a 6 months, like a halfway ranking,
Mm-hmm.
because then, that kind of messes with like what we're trying to do, because being able to like give everybody like this newly minted like passport, so to speak, of like your top 50 for 6 months,
Yeah.
like that's important, because people, I don't know if it's like your next question about live rankings, but people are like, well, why don't you do live rankings so that they update after every event? Well, Smash itself doesn't lend itself to doing that very well, because it's also an inconsistent game.
Mm-hmm.
There's always surprises. And so if 20 to 30 different people can lay claim to top 10 in one season, then top 10 loses its exclusivity.
Yeah.
Teams don't have a really clear understanding. Um, it's like the stock market. If you just take it like day by day, like there's different conclusions you can draw, as opposed to 6 months,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to 6 years, as opposed to 60 years. So, um, measuring it at the end, everybody simultaneously currently is the best thing we do, or the best thing we found to do. And then also, the way we were able to at least like display in the presentation this season on the videos was showing their PGRV4 season history by showing their PGRV3 wins
Mm-hmm.
and their ranking. So you saw when people beat Allied, showed up as fifth. When they beat, um, whoever else showed up as like top 10 or top 20, even if they don't play anymore, even if they don't whatever, because we are recognizing
Yeah.
that. We want people to recognize that. But for a numbers game, like it doesn't really matter what happened 6 months ago, because it's already wrong.
Yeah.
Like, because again, and Cosmos is another great example. Like he definitely like he like surged up, and then stayed there too, because the other thing is like every now and then you get people that do surge but then like fall down, and then
Mm-hmm.
what do you make of that? But if you take the whole span of time, then you get a pretty clear picture that, okay, well, you take the bad with the good, and then you have a better sense. But if you just took their one peak, then of course,
Yeah.
wins like Lima and Cosmos a mistake, and anybody else that wasn't on the PGR that is now, assessing it all at the end pretty much accounts for most of that.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And so my last question about PGR is how much would my bribe have to be to get like 42nd on version 5?
42nd on version 5?
Yeah. Just
Like,
a
you
rough
mean like
estimate.
for you to get on it, or for you to find out who it is?
For me to get on it, how much would my bribe have to be?
That's funny. No, we don't do bribes. Hilariously enough, and this is I mean, people can choose to believe it or not, but we keep it pretty private. Leaks and extortion or corroboration or all of that. We're not at the point yet where like whether or not you're ranked or not. Well, okay, we are, or whether or not you're ranked or not gets you places.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's tournaments want you, teams want you, publications want you. I mean, it does change. It does change a little bit of your timeline. Less so for 31 through 50, but
Yeah.
top 20 for sure. They get things happening to them all the time. PAX wants you. Like things like ESA, like 2GG Saga events want you,
Mm-hmm.
and so it definitely does change a lot. But we're not at a point where like if you make top 10 or not, like that's like $1 million deals.
Yeah.
So there's no bribe or anything. And we're pretty honest. Like E7 and MVD obviously have been on it 4 times. Obviously they're Panda, we're Panda, but they have nothing to do with the ranking methodology. If anything, we consult them as well as other top players. In the past, we've talked to Zero, Naira, Mr. R, Allied, Buzz, a slew of them to sort of understand what's most fair to them.
Mm-hmm.
From their feedback, we've been able to develop, okay, well, if you have X amount of tournaments after like, the fourth or the fifth one, things start to sort of, taper out, because we wanted everybody to, since we don't have an established league, since we don't have like everybody going to the same events all the time,
Mm-hmm.
if somebody has like 20 events and someone has 5 events, at one point there has to be a lot of diminishing returns, or else it just turns into an attendance record. But ESAM gets the videos ahead of time, or gets the data ahead of time, because he makes videos for his content creation to come out,
Mm-hmm.
pretty much like right when the releases come out, because timing is everything.
Yeah.
And MVD never gets access to them until the day he finds out, essentially. And then ESAM, by virtue of his content creation, finds out, but that's a different story. But yeah, like we try to keep the list pretty airtight. I think we've been good with leaks this season. I always joke around how I like make 3 different lists and like distribute them
Mm-hmm.
among groups. But pretty much the second the list is made, I assume it's been leaked to the entire world because it's just, like as
Yeah.
soon as you like, there's so many hands on the project. Like there's 9 people on the team itself. That means 9 boyfriends, 9 girlfriends, 9 friends, nine close friends. Like anytime anyone tells you, "Hey, don't tell anybody," you at least think of one person you're gonna tell.
Yeah.
Like being honest.
Mm-hmm.
So that person knows, and then this person knows, and then all that. And then also we opened up this season to like, hey, if you are in talks with the team and you have documentation, like let me know, and we can talk so you can get your ranking early. And so we did that for I mean, I guess it's happened already, but we've done that for Dyer. We did that for who else? We did that for a bunch of other people. Waddy asked, Larry
Mm-hmm.
Lur asked, Void, even the top players too, because they're re-signing. So there's always people trying to like find out, and then there's always like speculation, and then all this. So it's funny, but we keep it pretty airtight.
What led you to want to do like a cold analytical ranking system instead of like a ballot akin to the Melee on Me Top 100? Like I know you guys have the X Factor, but that's not the official ranking.
Yeah. Um, yeah, that's a great question only because it's funny because there's a lot of melee interest in a PGR system. A lot of people feel that the melee it on me method is, I mean, it is literally biased,
Yeah.
but it's also what Tafo feels is the most appropriate because he's tried ELO, he's tried all these other things, and it's true. ELO, tennis style, true skill, Glicko, they all fall apart after top 20.
Mm-hmm.
Our method, it takes after it's called Ergovican, but it basically it's like a series of major seeds, and it takes all these simultaneous like placements and set counts and who you outplace and all that. And that's only really possible because we have like the database and so much access with Smash GG
Mm-hmm.
in terms of like data. I don't like Tafo has Tafo stats, but I don't know like you need a lot of people to like really get that going. I just don't think he has the time, but also the system they have kind of just works for them.
Yeah.
They also have like a decade pool of like experts and people who like follow. I mean, even Fendi, one of their popular commentators, is like posting his ballot like as their rankings come out so people can hold them accountable. So it is a popularity contest, but people also are very, they take it very seriously.
Mm-hmm.
But what led me to having ours be based on just statistics is the fact that our scene is not only very new, but our game is very new. Our results are changing all the time. You have people saying if you don't go to 2 tournaments, you're immediately like
You're
not
washed.
relative. You're washed. You're not relative. Then you come back and you win, and then people are like, oh yeah, people upset like through like our testing, through our even our releases. This one specifically, I watched even Mr. R stream his reaction,
Mm-hmm.
and when tournaments happen and they see the wins and losses, they'll be like, oh my gosh, they beat who? And oh my gosh, they lost to what? Like he thought that Fallen beat Zero this season, and it's like no, that was last season. And people obsess over peaks, people obsess over
Mm-hmm.
upsets. So you take that into account, plus how young our scene is, both not only in demographic but also in the fact that we've only been here for 3 years. Uh, the amount of bias that would like kind of be seeping from doing some sort of system with ballots for us is just it's just not going to work out.
Okay.
And we've seen it all the time with the X Factor varying wildly for some people.
Mm-hmm.
This is the first time we've ever done X Factor after all the tournaments are done. Last season, I don't want to say made the mistake, but we did the only thing we could have to
Yeah.
get everything out of time because we need at least 2 weeks to like give out these surveys, get people to take it, and then bring it back. Myron, for example, was on the X Factor, and he had last season on X Factor like negative like 20 or 30. And that's because at the time the X Factor was given, Narasaga and CEO hadn't happened, and
Yeah.
that's precisely where he decided to like pop off. So of course there's like people before that thought, oh Myron whatever, it's Florida Olimar whatever, and then he like did all this crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but like yeah, in X Factor, people always tend to rate Japanese much higher than they're perceived to be. They like to not rate certain people and give them credit. Like people don't like to give the Buzz credit. People don't like to give some of the players like Mr. Ian Manny credit, for example, because they're overshadowed by Leo and Ken respectively for their character mains. People, don't remember results. People misremember results. People don't understand the numbers behind the results, because the other thing too about showing the wins and losses this time associated to the placement is, yes, the Buzz won Civil War and he has all the credit, he has that forever, but on his way to doing that, he beat people that weren't exactly as powerful as some of the other people in the bracket. I mean, beating T is obviously great, Fatality is obviously great, but now you're not talking about people who are like Ally Zero, Void, Mr. R, but he still got first. So there is bracket luck. There is stuff that happens. Sometimes you go to a tournament and you lose to Nairo and Zero, and you get 13.
Yeah.
And like, what do you do with that? So people are like, oh, 13th, like they're washed. And it's like, no, he lost the first and second in the tournament. It's like, oh, well, that bites. So that's been really cool too, showing their bracket runs. People like, I've always said placements don't matter. It's who you outplace. It takes people a second to get that, but it's like, yeah, who did you outplace? Because 7th at a tournament doesn't really mean much, and that's why we did away with placement points. 7th place at Evo means like worlds different from 7th place at Glitch, like an MTVA regional. So, having that all in mind, like when you basically sterilize it or remove everything to just be a numbers component, and you can't argue that, then it's much more easier for everybody to sort of like take that in, accept it. And now people don't even argue about the methodology. They just like sometimes say like, oh, I thought X was too high or X was too low.
Yeah.
This, and that. I didn't know. I didn't follow, as opposed to like all this feeling stuff, which, tournament's a tournament. Like people, like right after 2GGC finals, everyone thinks MKLeo's #1 in the world.
Yeah.
Or if not #2. Right, but then they forget about Salem's Evo, Salem's DreamHack, Salem's everything, and it's like that's just how people are,
Okay.
So.
Yeah. And then this can just be like a really quick question. I don't think we really need to delve in too far. Is do you ever think we could see the PGR expand to rank 100 players instead of 50?
Yeah, that's a question every season. My personal opinion is no, not ever. And then the second thing is feasibility wise. It's just not appropriate, because even though, Melee does it, Melee has a deeper skill pool because of the age, because of everything that goes into it. Like, they are very different communities. As much as people lump them together, they are very, very different.
Yeah.
Different motivations, different, tournament architecture, different competitive landscape, different everything, but, similar game titles. But for the rankings in our testing, if you notice the overall scores that people are assigned throughout the rankings, for example, this season, like it starts with the people in the 41 through 50, they start in the 30s, like 36, 37, someone's maybe 39 point this, like their overall score. Basically, we take all their scores and normalize it against #1, which, always happens to be 0, and he has a score of 100. And so the second person has like a score of like 96, 97. You see like a gap, right? The next person might have a score of like 95. So you see that gap too. Sometimes gaps are like 0.1, like someone has 92.3 and someone else has 92.2. But what happens is as you go lower, it compresses so much that the whole reason we even do Area 51 is because 51 through 55, there's almost like no statistical difference.
Yeah.
That telling someone that they're 51 over 52 is just like very semantics at that point, and whatever value you're giving the most like sort of priority to, whether it's like place, like who they outplace or what their wins are or whose value does what, it changes wildly. The top 25 usually stays pretty compact, but after that everything can like just shift like really hard. And especially when the farther you go, like it's kind of like a sniper. Like they move like probably like 2 inches to the left and out towards the edge, that's like miles.
Yeah.
Up close it's like like a couple feet, but the farther you get, it goes all over the place. In our tests earlier before for 2017, there was about 5,000 or so like actively concurrent, kind of like after taking out the tournaments and taking unique entrants, not just adding up the totals. There's about like 5,000 or so competitive players. These are the players in the PGR events that would travel, that would pile up in a hotel room, that would take the weekend off, that would go to SoCal, that would go to, Utah, that would go to the
Mm-hmm.
Midwest. So there was about 5,000 people, and the top 50 represents about, the top 1%. So it also keeps it pretty like exclusive.
Mm-hmm.
Expanding past that kind of like, I don't know, it kind of like tears away at like the whole exclusivity factor. And then also like, it's so much work. Like it's
Yeah.
so much work. If we did like 51 through 100 just got like, a sentence or a blurb, I mean, then that's also like kind of cheapening their experience. You
Yeah.
have to go all out. And we're not going to make videos for them and all this other stuff. And
Yeah.
it's not appropriate for our scene yet. I mean, it's not appropriate. It's not feasible. And it's also kind of like, it's just not something we should be focusing on.
Okay. Cool. And my last question before we wrap up. How do you feel about the people on Reddit who make the too long didn't watch comments that make it so people almost have no reason to watch videos? We've seen Esam get into debates about it diminishing the work he puts in, and I can even speak to the same thing that'll happen on my content posted, and it can yield wildly different numbers.
Oh yeah. That's a whole different animal itself. Like digital media today is in a very strange place. We've seen closures of many, many sites of
Mm.
all sorts, esports or not. But when it comes to content, production, we live in a weird time where everybody wants everything immediately. People want digestible, easy to understand, immediate information. We've seen a lot of news publications now adopt more of the like Al Jazeera style sort of like post where like there's like an ongoing video and like maybe 5 to 10 words at a time being flashed across like the conflict in Israel, and then like it shows something, and then 2,000 displays, and it shows people walking and whatever, and it kind of like just and you consume it in 2 minutes, and like now you know the story. But if there was like an article, no one's clicking that.
Yeah.
Like it just doesn't happen. There are people who read, yes, but not as much as before. Or actually, no, people read now more than ever, but they do not read for long.
Yeah.
And so it's very hard. And so, of course, you put this 10-minute video out, this 15-minute video out, a video that might require all your faculties. You can't close it out. You can't just put it in your pocket. And so people are like, hey, give me the TLDR. They give you that, and then now you know the list. Now you're talking about that, and then now people haven't clicked what you wrote. So because of Reddit TLDRs, even Twitter, people take screenshots of like the last second where it shows the top 10, and they're like, "Hey, congrats, Elegant," or whoever. And now people are talking about that. Now there's like 200 retweets and 500 likes on something that isn't the video, and now people don't watch the video, and it's very nebulous to sort of source impressions. I mean, like I've seen the PGR, like the PG Stats account tweet the video. The video has like 200 retweets, 300 likes, but then I see like Charlie the King say, "Oh my gosh, I'm 35th in the world. I can't believe it." 1,000 likes.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like, I mean, that's for him to have
Yeah.
whatever, but there's obviously a bigger audience than just what's being hit by the video. But in the past, I mean, we wrote articles, we did narration, tons of work. I would write probably 20 to 30 pages per season just on the script.
Mm-hmm.
And you're also talking about making 50 people sound interesting and contextualizing the results in a 6 months time span to potentially people who've never heard of the game, to people who already know the game.
Yeah.
And like I've told many people, like I'm a teacher, and when you teach to like the middle of the class, everybody in the high level is like, okay, I've done this already, I'm not going to listen. And everybody at the low end of the class are like, what are you talking about? So we put a narration out starting, talking about Elegant being this up and coming Luigi, zero Nairo ally. They already know it. They're not going to listen. Anybody outside the game, they don't know what an Abadango is. They don't know what a Ken is. They don't know what it means to beat them. They don't know what it is that they main or what they do. So it becomes very like, now you're talking to the middle, and they're like, yeah, we know Elegance from SoCal. But we did away with that. Articles as well. Like you'd have like a paragraph or two kind of like talking about the player, and it'd get overlooked because people wouldn't go on the website because they're already just debating on Reddit about the TLDR. And so we're like, you know what? Let's just make it so. And in the past too, there wasn't so much of an impetus to, like motivations to watch the video because, it was like two images essentially talking and stuff, and you'd animate it whatever you had a VOD. But like you didn't really make use of the video format. But this time, it's like you have to watch the video to understand who the player is, and a lot of people have reservations against that. Also, a lot of people love it. But now it's like, if you want to get the full scoop, like you gotta watch it. So we kind of like adapted with the times. We also took away narration, because if you can even imagine, even if we had like Morgan Freeman or whoever, like even if we had Sakurai like narrate it in the most perfect of syntax and diction and everything, so it fit in those 45 seconds, you have audio and visual cues all going off at once.
Yeah,
it'd be too overwhelming. So this at least lends itself for good reaction videos, good commentary. Like I could imagine maybe, I don't know, maybe like a couple days or a week from now, some people recording themselves talking over it and talking about what they thought. We see Keitaro and Mr. R, and I even had Mr. R on yesterday to do reactions with me, and you can like talk about it, because before people would play it and talk over the narration when they were streaming it, and then it's like, wow, well, that went to waste. So
yeah.
Is it a fault of Reddit? I mean, not particularly. I mean, if you're going to assign blame, sure. But, some people even take, in other esports or in other communities, they take entire articles and put it on Reddit. Like they just copy paste the article. So you don't even click the site. And, is that unethical? Is that illegal? Well, people want their content now. And that's just another thing they want to click, and they don't want to click. People want their content free. And so it's hard. I mean, how do you monetize something that gets copy pasted? It's like you can't. So, you see sites go down, you see forums go down, because like everybody just talks on Discord, Twitter, Facebook groups, Reddit. So it's pretty dastardly times for stuff like that. So we're like, okay, if this is gonna hit, it's got to hit viral. And so we made it to be viral ready, and to be something that also doesn't have to be translated, doesn't have to be, I mean, obviously you have to know what a Genesis is, but at that point, if you don't know what that is, then we're not really, we can't appeal to you, But then that's why the ranking helps. Like, okay, this person's number one in this game. You might not know what Diddy is, but they're number one. That's easy in conversation.
Yeah.
Like if you want to tell your friends I'm 25th in the world, then they're like, okay, that's cool, and that's all. So it's a huge like multicultural, multi-dimensional thing that you have to grapple with, because with the internet being the way it is, with the ability to screenshot, the ability to make GIFs and all that, you always have to be thinking about how it can be shared if you're not sharing it.
Yeah.
By that, it also has to be clear, and it has to be something that can't be misunderstood, or misconstrued. So we try our best with all that. And I think we've had some like good success so far.
Yeah, this is definitely, I think, probably the most successful PGR that I've seen, like from a spectator/player. And I suggest anyone who hasn't watched them, you definitely need to. There's something I think special about these, that like it almost gets a feel of like playing Smash as a kid, like getting the unlocks when it makes the noise every time and shows the wins.
Yeah,
it definitely had a very unique feel to it. But yeah, so that wraps up everything I had to talk about. Thanks for coming on, and congratulations on making another successful version of the PGR, especially with the videos being as amazing as they are. Let the people know where they can find you online to keep up with you and your sponsors.
Yeah, PG Suar on Twitter, at PG_Suar. PG Stats as well is on Twitter. We do live updates all the time, and that's where all the videos are being posted. And that's at the PG Stats. But I also do want to like really shout out Cud. He goes by Coder or Cooter on Twitter. It's at COODER_SSB4. And like I said, their editing has been ridiculous. It's been off the charts. But yeah, Panda Global has been really supportive as well. Each season, Alan, the CEO, and David, the co-founder, they've like mentored me a lot through understanding how releases work, how criticism manifests itself, how to handle that criticism, and I've been all the better for it. And as well as like our partners like HyperX and Geico, they've been really awesome, and being able to like help spread the message. But yeah, it's been a fun time. Somehow we get better every season. Everybody always says like the current season is the best one, but then like I'd say like not even like tooting my own horn, but like literally like each season the progression from like I thought last release was like we couldn't top that. And we were
Mm-hmm.
almost going to just we almost like recycled last season into this season because like I was like, well, it was really good, but then somehow we went above and beyond that. So now the problem is finding out how we can top this season. I think we might have found a standard. I don't know, but obviously there's ways to improve all the time. But I think this is a pretty cool standard to stay at. It also lends itself to potentially being used for more intermittent updates in case we need to do some like tournament recaps or something. So I don't know. We'll
Mm-hmm.
see. But everybody that's been on the team, PracticalTAS, Giant, Dom, Zan, Juddy, Poppy, Spike, Mayday, like everyone's been like a tremendous um, hands on deck sort of help. So I never do it alone. It's not me, it's a team. So I thank all of them.